How do you see this delay, sir? 10 days back is when the two sides had agreed that the corps commanders would meet for a sixth time urgently to try and de-escalate the situation. There have been incidents of firing that have happened since then, but there appears to be a prominent delay from the Chinese side in reverting with dates for these talks.
Shiv, you're absolutely right. The Chinese, firstly, as everyone knows, that they can't be trusted. Probing has now gone well to a amount of coercion. I said they've stopped probing now. They are only posturing and not probing anymore, at least for the last 10 days. After 29th and the 30th of August, they have seen that India is in a position of strength. Having seen that, now they realize that even in Taiwan, with the Undersecretary's visit, they're under pressure at that front. So it is so much better that you keep delaying over here. It doesn't really matter. Just focus and concentrate over there and to see what Taiwan does with USA over there. Now the USA's Undersecretary's visit should finish in the next about 2 days. After that, you will find that now they will offer for talks. Next week, we'll have the corps commanders talk. So since China is on the back foot, they are unable to see what they can do about it. They know Eastern Ladakh, LAC is no longer an LAC. It's become border. So there's more ambiguity. And let us see how we go about. They must be thinking with the Indians. Because even in Finger 4, Finger 8, all these areas, the more concern now is the Depsang plain. That's where we have got to see that the Chinese are at least pushed back. This kind of a thing which they're trying to posture around in Depsang is something we really need to be, we must take care of that particular feature. And at no point of time, the guard must be down. We must be vigilant. You cannot trust the Chinese chef. You just cannot trust them at all, because they would keep you busy in talks and do something at another front, unbelievable, a front which you would have never thought of. They would have opened something unnecessarily. So Chinese are capable of putting pressure, but since we are in strength everywhere, they know that military posturing alone they can do on their side. Probing is almost prohibited for the time being. I hope that during the talks, something worthwhile emerges, but at least 5 rounds of talks have not resulted in anything worthwhile.
One thing is absolutely certain, gentlemen, which is that, no matter what the talks do or do not achieve, the Indian military is staying completely prepared. Andrew Leung, trust is at an all-time low. That is something that is beyond dispute. But there are theories about why the Chinese side would clearly delay talks that it has committed to almost 10 days ago. Why do you think this has happened? Because on this side, the view is obfuscation, prevarication, perhaps some kind of miscalculation, India achieving certain strengths in the last few weeks, etc., etc. What's your view?
Well, first of all, I think we have got to come to the reality that the whole issue, these conflicts, cannot be resolved through military means because both are nuclear powered. And even though you gain certain tactical advantage on the ground, it doesn't mean that that's the end of the problem, because the other side will defend their own interests, or both sides would defend their own interests with all their might. So I don't think that the military kind of talks is the end of the problem. And in fact, before this military commanders meet, the stage is set by some broad agreements at the highest level in both countries.
Foreign Ministry.
And the so-called 5 points already agreed. Now, why the delay? I would necessarily call it delay, because if you are involved in this kind of situation, both commanders would have to assess the situation on the ground. As pointed out in earlier interviews, the Indian side have seized certain heights. It doesn't mean that China cannot seize other heights, but as I said, that the military tactics cannot solve the problem.
But I think Andrew, apologize for interrupting you, but this delay is not mutual. The delay in these talks is not mutual. The delay in the talks is not mutual. These were agreed upon by both sides. It is China which has failed to come back with a date for these talks. India has been prepared for these talks. There is a clear delay by China. 10 days is not a small period of time when you've got troops barely 100, 200, 300 meters away from each other, tanks and artillery facing each other. 10 days is an eternity.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is that it's the Indian side which chose to seize certain heights right? So that changed the dynamics on the ground.
Yeah,
and then the Chinese commander has got to assess the situation. So that's point number one, before they fully prepare for these military talks. The second point is that I think this probably Chinese side feels that time could be on their side because the winter's coming. It doesn't mean that they want to delay until winter, but then the assessment has been that on the Indian side, even the armor, some of the tanks are not well suited to operations in cold weather, and so that it translates into the kind of negotiation advantage on one side or the other. So that may have been the assessment.